Hey guys, welcome to another Sims 4 speed build. It's your boy Tyler, and we are out here in what is this town called? Jesus, Willow Willow Creek. Is that what it's called? Right? We're out here in beautiful Willow Creek, building building an A-frame house in the woods for a writer. So the sim that I built this house for, is a sort of famous author, professor type person. Her name is Lucretia Van Zant, and her story is that she is, big time author, super famous, professor of literature at whatever university, a bit important one. And her life is going downhill, right? Her wife divorced her. She was fired from her job for self-publishing like this really crazy, like scandalous novel, even though the academia, the department told her not to. And so she decided that she is going to take control. She's going to take control of her career and her reputation. She's going to get it back on track, and she's going to do that by writing her greatest work yet. So she's retreating into the woods, into this house that I'm building for her now. And that's going to be her sort of like hideaway while she's working on this sort of like incredible new novel. So this house is an A-frame house that I decided to build out in the woods. Unfortunately, I didn't have any like woodsy themed worlds. I've only got this one, Willow Creek ? So instead of actually putting the woods, I just sort of like surround it in trees and make it look woodsy. But I think I did a pretty good job of that. And it is I call it the Writer's Retreat mid-century A-frame. And so the idea was I wanted it to be sort of a mid-century inspired A-frame house. And that gave me a couple of challenges. So the first challenge to this house is that because it's an A-frame, a lot of the sort of like footprint of the house in the lot is just roof, right? You have to put roofs on the side of the house and on the top of the house to make it look like an A-frame. And that means that a lot of the actual floor space of the house isn't livable. It's just roof. So that means that the house looks pretty big, right? It looks a little big. It's a little awkward, honestly, like a little unwieldy. And that a lot of the floor space is actually not livable. A lot of the spaces are pretty tight. So that was one challenge, just trying to figure out how to sort of populate, these pretty small spaces and make sure that the house didn't look like ginormous or awkward with these big sort of clumsy roofs. But that's just kind of like what an A-frame is. My second challenge is that I wanted this house to be secluded and private, right? Because the idea is that this author, Lucretia Van Zant, she's looking for a place where she could be alone to work on her writing. So what I really wanted was sort of like to take that really common like mid-century like design premise of like privacy from the front and then like open spaces in the back to kind of make this house look really secluded and private. Because it is an A-frame, that means that all of the walls on the sides of the house are closed to windows, unless I wanted the whole roof to be like glass, but I didn't want that. And if I want no windows really in the front, or just like a few small windows, that means all the windows in the house are in the back. So the second challenge of this house is to work with these really small spaces that are also really like poorly lit. There's no really natural lighting, which means that I had to figure out a way to make the walls not look super bare, but also to make the lighting look good. So this is a bunch of things I had to consider when I was making this house. This house was intended as a mid-century style. That's sort of what influenced me. I found a couple of pretty cool pictures online of A-frames in the woods. There was one in particular that was just like built up on the side of this hill, and it was all black. Like all the walls were black and the roof was black, and it had this sort of like light wood like platform in front of it. That's sort of what inspired this house for me, and so that's kind of the direction I go for, is just all black, black roof trim, black roof, black walls, black windows, those columns right there that I'm working with from Debug, black, but then I wanted like a really, really nice light wood tone. So because this house is built up sort of on not a cliff, but a hill, also working with terrain was kind of tough. I used those debug columns because those were really the only ones that I could sort of manipulate with the terrain. But that meant every time that I changed the terrain height or wanted to move the house at all, those columns would sort of shift up and down. So I had to figure out a way to make sure they were sized right and they were leveled right so that they wouldn't peek in up under the floor, and so that they would sort of match the floor line. So those are a couple of challenges that I encountered in building this house. Why don't I tell you a little bit about this sim that I built the house for? Here's Lucretia. Like I said, she is a famous author, famous writer, professor of literature. She's really self-assured. I like to imagine that she's super confident. Her sort of career and her reputation and her life is falling apart, but she's like, I'm gonna put it back together. She likes to be alone. She's obviously like a really big book person. She's just super creative. And yeah, I wanted a space for her that could be kind of sophisticated, and combine elements of like this sort of A-frame, woodsy coziness with all those sort of tight spaces, and the nice big windows that open up on the forest. But then I wanted to sort of mix that with the sort of like refinement of a mid-century style. So I wanted to sort of marry those two design, concepts together in this house. I got a couple of exciting things to share with you guys. Like I said earlier, I didn't have any sort of woods-themed worlds when I was building this, so we had to put it in this town. But as of now, I'm the proud owner of a couple of new game packs. So I decided to just totally ball out the other day, and I bought one of those Origin bundles that come with an expansion pack, a game pack, and a stuff pack. And so I got Island Living, I got Tiny House stuff. What's it called? Tiny Home? Tiny Living? Tiny Living. And I got, oh my god, Realm of Magic, which I'm super excited about. Because I've been a huge Sims fan like my whole life. I used to play Making Magic in the first Sims all the time. It was the best expansion pack. It was super fun, and I'm really excited to get to work on some of these spellcaster Sims. I want to build a house for like an herbalist. I think that'd be really cool. But so that means I also have Glimmerwork now, so I feel like this would be a good house to put in the woods out there. Like I said, I also have Island Living, which I'm super excited about. My next build, which you'll see on my channel, is an islandy themed build. So as always, like, this house is a base game only build. As always though, from here on out, if I'm doing any, if I'm using any sort of expansion packs or anything like that, they'll be single pack only builds. I want my builds to be super accessible, so if you only have Island Living, you'll be able to download the next one. But that's for the next video. Let me talk about this house. You see what I'm doing now? I'm really working like crazy on this roof. This roof is really complicated because what I wanted was that one side of the roof is sort of, the side facing the house doesn't stick out too far, but the side facing away from the side facing the road doesn't stick out too far, and the side facing the backyard to have this nice big overhang that I could put these like columns and beams and stuff on. So that means I had to use two separate roof pieces, because otherwise, if I used just one and then I expanded the sort of roof line, it would expand in both sides, and that's not what I wanted. I only wanted one side. That posed another problem for the fact that I wanted you to be able to see from the first floor all the way up to the roof. So I wanted to eliminate the second floor and just change it into those black beams. So when you're looking up from the living room, you're able to see sort of those nice wooden black beams. I wanted you also to be able to see the entire chimney all the way up through the house if you're looking through the windows. So I had to do a lot of work on the roof to make sure that you can get all of those things, which was tough, but and because I'm using two separate roof pieces, there is one wall that sort of cuts through the middle of the house. That's okay. The biggest problem with it is that because it's a roof and not an actual room, the lighting doesn't render properly. That means that while you can see all the way up through, from the first floor through the beams and all the way up through the chimney, unfortunately the lighting isn't the same. So it'll look like a normally lit room on the first floor, but then if you look up through the ceiling, it'll be really dark. It won't be lit the exact same way, which is kind of frustrating, but what I like is that from the outside of the house, you can see all the way up through the entire thing. So now you see I'm working on a lot of the landscaping, which is definitely like the biggest and sort of most important aspect of this house. I wanted it to look really natural. I wanted it to look like this house was super secluded in the middle of the woods, and so I grabbed a bunch of those really nice pine trees from Debug. I grabbed a bunch of wildflowers and rocks and logs and like those big bushy ferns and grasses, and I just covered this entire lot in these plants. And I really like the way it looks. I think it turns out really, really natural looking. I use that terrain paint a lot, the one that the sort of grassy dirt one that sort of looks like a forest floor. I'm putting all these plants under the deck so that it looks sort of like overgrown and that the whole house is sort of like emerging from out of the woods. Like I said, I wanted this house to be really, really secluded looking. I wanted it to look, sort of not inapproachable, but I wanted it to be like sort of hidden, deep in the woods, where no one can find it. And so I think I did a good job of that. I'm really actually proud of the landscaping on this house. It looks super natural and really good. I put that one tree you see going up through the middle of the deck. I don't know why. I just really like that idea. It just, the whole trunk like sticks up through the deck. There's like a hole in the deck, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, I just thought it'd be nice. You see me putting a couple more logs, some rocks, some wildflowers. I put this nice little dirt path. I also didn't really want this house to be, super like intricate. It's just a really, really simple build. And so all the landscaping around it, I wanted to do most of the work. So like the path right there is just dirt. There's not really a lot of adornment on the house. Just the one chimney, that one like tree sticking up through the deck I thought was cool, but that's about it. It's a really, really simple build. Honestly, without all of the landscaping, it would look like boring. But I think it looks great. I'm really, really excited about it. I think this house is super rad. And from the road, it really looks pretty special. Yeah, just see me adding some more grasses, some more bushes. I went overboard with with these debug plants. I just think they're so cool. They have so many good plants in debug, and they really make this build look super, super natural. So I'm really, really happy about that. I'm working on this little patio on the outside now too. I liked the idea of having a little patio here. I thought it'd be a nice spot to like grill, if that's something that you think your writer sim might be into. There is a deck up on the sort of the main floor that I'll put some chairs out on there. You'll see them and all of that stuff too. But I like the idea of having like a little deck to be, grilling in. I think it'd be cool. Real quick there, you saw how those columns were sort of peeking through the floor. I had to keep going up and down and checking to make sure that the columns weren't sticking out of the floor. You see here that all of the lighting isn't rendering properly in that space right there, which is going to be sort of like the living room study. I'm gonna have to do a lot of work with the roof to make sure that the lighting will render properly. So you see that I just cut ahead of it. It would have been a lot of like boring stuff you didn't need to see. Just me like futzing around with the roof line. Now you see me jumping in. I'm gonna start decorating the living room. This living room took me a long time. This living room went through like 3 different incarnations. At first I wanted it to be like black walls to sort of like go continuously from the outside of the house, and then I would make these sort of like built-in black wood bookshelves, and I thought like a bright yellow couch would be really cool. I tried it. It did not look good. It looked really ridiculous. So then I tried to mess around, changing some stuff to white, keeping the yellow couch, changing the couch and stuff. And then eventually I was sending pictures to my boyfriend. I was swashing back and forth on undo, redo, undo, trying to figure out like which one do I like the most. And then I gave up and I slept on it. Woke up the next day. I was like, you know what? We'll just go real serious, all wood mid-century. So what I really like in this house is that the walls and the floor are all this sort of like wood slats. They're like wood paneling. This is something I really, really like about a lot of mid-century houses, is that they take this like honestly sort of like cheesy looking material, like the kind of material that you'll see in like an old person's basement, that like wooden paneling, and they cover the entire inside of the house in it, and it looks really refined. It looks really simple and adds a lot of really nice texture. And I think that's wonderful. I think it's really cool. Here in the middle of the house, you sort of see this big chimney, which I think forms a nice centerpiece to the house. It's like a gray brick chimney. It goes all the way up through the house. You can see it from the kitchen dining room area all the way through the living room. I love this space. Not space. I love this aspect. Yeah, whatever it is. I love it. I think it forms like a really cool sort of like skeleton for the house. It's like, it's what the entire house is sort of built around. In the back of the couch, you see that whole sort of like built-in bookshelf shelving unit that I put in. I use some kitchen counters for that, and I just sort of sized up those bookshelves, and then put some shelving on top of there. I wanted a space, because she is the sim that I built this for, she is a writer. I wanted a space for a lot of bookshelves, but I also wanted some shelving because I like to imagine that because she is a really famous writer, because she, you know, is like a professor of literature, that she has a lot of like prizes. You know, I'd like to imagine that she won a lot of trophies for writing and things like that. So I put a couple trophies up on that shelving unit. And I know that I was shit talking these things in like my first build, the stacks of books, which the ones that you can find in like the debug menu, the stacks of books I always thought were like useless. And now I finally have this writer sim, and I was like, oh my god, perfect. I could take these stacks of books, put them up on the shelving units, and it looks like those are all just copies of the books that she's written. So that's what I did. I have a couple of those like stacks with the copies of the books. I thought that would be really, really cool. I'd like to imagine this writer is maybe like a little vain, like she cares a lot about her like notoriety and her like her prizes and her work, you know, that she would like go and like display all of her trophies and her books on next to each other. She has like a little shrine to her professional achievements, which I think is kind of funny. This space right here is gonna be her writing area. So unfortunately, it's a little smaller than I would have liked. I wish that she had sort of like a bigger, maybe even like a separate dedicated room. But I didn't change it for a couple reasons. My first reason is that I intended for this house to be, it is like a secluded, woodsy A-frame. I didn't want it to be that big. I honestly wanted it to be really, really cozy, and I wanted there to be kind of tight spaces. You know, I imagine that when people want to be like secluded in the woods, they're not going to go to this massive house with all of these like big rooms. I thought that having some really tight spaces would make this house feel really like intimate and closed in and cozy. So I decided that actually this little like landing, study, writing desk area would fit really well for that. And the second reason is that because this is an A-frame, if you make the rooms of the house too wide, the roof will be really tall because you have to sort of like enclose all of the rooms in a one big A-shaped roof. And the wider it is, naturally, the taller it'll have to be. Or if you don't want it to be obscenely wide, you're going to have to make it obscenely tall. So I didn't really want to push the limits of this house being any wider than it already was, because if I did, the roof line would be crazy. It would just be like really, really insanely wide or insanely tall. You'll see this house it's kind of cluttered. I imagine that this writer is someone who is like pretty organized in her own life, like really powerful, honestly, like, you know, high power, really successful, sort of like cutthroat in her own career. I didn't imagine her being like a particularly nice person, but I did imagine her being a very strong person. And so I like to imagine that in her like normal apartment in the city or wherever she lives, everything is like really clean and organized, and that this place is going to be her like refuge. So I thought that this place could be kind of messy, right? This is the place where she gets to like let herself be, right? So I did put a lot of clutter all over the place. Now you see I'm working on the kitchen. Couple disclaimers about the kitchen. One is that stove right there, which I put sort of inserted into the counter, I thought that looked really, really cool. I liked that sort of like built-in feature. Same goes for that sink. I love this sort of built-in aspect to it. Then I went through and I play tested the house, and unfortunately they don't work. Your sim can't use them. So you'll see that they sort of look like this now in the video. I think I'll change them for the screenshots, but those don't stay. As cool as they are, they don't stay because they're not usable. I think I'm just gonna swap out the I get rid of the sort of built-in counter space and I tighten up the counters a little bit, and then I change the sink to just like a normal built-in counter sink. You also see me doing this thing that I love to do up here on the kitchen shelves, where I put like bowls and pots and plates and little packages of food and stuff like that. I love doing this. It really, really makes my builds look like super lived in and really like populated with stuff. But it wasn't until I went through and play tested it, and I don't know why I didn't realize this until now, is that like even though all those things are empty, in debug they're food items. So in like 24 hours in the game, those things are going to start to go bad, even though there's nothing on it. So like the plates will go bad, the bowls will go bad, which seems ridiculous, which is why I didn't think of it. But yes, it's true. Like they'll go bad. So if you download this house, and in like 24 hours, you find that every surface, every shelf and table is covered in those like green stink lines. That's why. You could just get rid of that stuff. It makes me really sad because I really, really like that stuff. I think it's super fun and it makes the build look really, really, I don't know, like authentic and lived in and real, you know, realistic. But those things are going to have to go. And I'm not going to be able to do those in my next couple of builds, which is a tragedy, but what are you going to do? But overall, I am pretty pleased with the way that this kitchen turned out. I really, really like the sort of two-tone counter thing going on. I popped a little bar in the corner. At first, I had more bookshelves there because I figured, like, oh, she's a writer. She loves reading books. But then I also figured, like, she's kind of like a tormented, like, creative type whose career is going downhill and her life is falling apart and she's getting divorced. So I also figured, like, she'd be drinking a lot. Like, I figured that she's going to be drinking a lot. So I gave her that little bar. I love that bar. I wish, though, that there was a different like bar shelving unit, you know, that one that has the like the light panel behind it that has all of the bottles and stuff like that. I think that thing's really cool, but the light behind it makes it totally unusable in a house. Like nobody would have that in real life, you know, that weird big light panel behind it. I wish they just gave us like a normal one. Maybe they do in a different expansion pack. I'll explore. I'll find out. So instead, yeah, that thing right there. Right? It's ridiculous. Nobody would have that in their house. So instead, I just put up some shelves with some like bottles and glasses. I think those glasses will probably all start to stink in like 24 hours, so you can get rid of them. But I like that area too. I like the little painting that I propped up against the wall. I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, I think that's about it for the kitchen. Oh yeah, I have to do this little like entryway. I really, really like this entryway. You'll see them in a second. I put like candles and plants up on that little half wall. And I think they look really, really nice. I think it looks like, I don't know, it has that element of like lived in-ness and like clutter that I think is really cool. Like just a little, I think I put maybe some books up there too, you know, just like a little space, a little, you know, surface area. Yeah, here you go. They're going up now. A little surface area for books and stuff to be sort of propped up on. I really liked it. I think it added like a nice little element of clutter. I sized down that giant plant and I put it in the corner. And yeah, that's about it for that. Now you see me working on the first floor bathroom. This is a full bathroom. There's one of those, you know, shower tub combos, sink, toilet, pretty normal. I really like the sort of two-tone thing going on. I wanted the wall like textures to be pretty contiguous. So like the entire, you know, indoor outdoor space uses, you know, the outside of the walls, and then those walls that extend into the house use those sort of wooden slats, although they are two different colors, the black on the outside and like the wood tone in the inside. And then I wanted the fireplace area to have the same brick tone, and I wanted the bathrooms to have this sort of like same white tile on the floor and the walls. So that one bathroom has like lots of different textures going on, but I actually think they all work together really, really well. I like it quite a bit. Now you see I'm starting to work on this little stairs area. It's really, really simple. I just really needed something to sort of like populate this space. So I put a lot of those cool paintings from Debug. I love these. These are really nice. I think they're just like, I don't know where you get them. Do your Sims like take pictures of them? I don't know. But I put those cool like painting lights up on the walls, and yeah, that's about it. Now you see me going back in to mess with the roof a little bit. You see me taking the floor off of the second floor so that you can see up through it. See, if you look through that window right there, you'll be able to see the entirety of the chimney. That was really important to me. I wanted the outside of the house to look, I wanted you to be able to see on the inside of the house, like its entire skeleton. I don't know why. There was something about that like really sort of vast open space that I thought would be really, really nice. It took me a really long time to figure out how to make this chimney work. For some reason, every time I like moved it up and down, the lighting would go crazy. I think that's because it's in this room that isn't a room, right? This room under the floor, because I got rid of the floor, or under the roof. I got rid of the floor on the second floor. I had to like mess with the roof line a bunch, and so it turns out that that's not really like a room, you know? So I had to sort of make my own chimney like this, which I think it looks even better than the original one. So I'm not too sad about it. You see me putting down all those black beams. Those are really awesome. When you look up from the first floor, if you like sort of tab in live mode, and you can move the camera around in that sort of like free camera mode, you can look up and they're there, and it's really cool. You see me change the front of the house to that sort of black brick. I thought that having more than one texture on the outside of the house would make it look a little more, I don't know, a little more intricate. It's such basic shape for a house that I needed to do something to just make it look a little bit more, I don't know, exciting from the outside. Now you see me working on the second floor? Bottom floor? Basement? I don't know, whatever you want to call this. This is her, like, living area. Sleeping bedroom. This is her bedroom. I sort of built that little custom bed using the counters, and then what you see I'll do is I'll take one of the, that one right there, and I'll sort of push it into the wall. When I was playtesting, unfortunately, I forgot to check if that works. So if it doesn't work, you could always move it to a different spot in the room. I really love how it looks, how it all forms this one, like, countertop, built-in storage area around the room. If it doesn't work, you could always just move it to a different spot in the house, or not in the house, in the bedroom. I really, really like, though, having this big, wide open space and having all of this counter space around the bed, because it gave me the opportunity to put a lot of really, really good clutter. So I put a lot of books there, I put, like, some little sculptures, I put some makeup, and I put, perfume and clothes, and I just pack this thing full of stuff, which I think is awesome. I think it looks really, really good. I love that space. I think it's cool. I also put a, what is that? Oh, yeah. I also put those things right there. The sort of like shelving clothes units. I like those things. I thought they gave the sort of like wardrobe area a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more going on. It took me a while to figure out how to get all of these things on to the countertop, though, because there's just so much stuff that I finally got to download that little red shelf. That thing's a blessing, but I had to sort of empty out the wall and all the counter space and then just totally redo it, because there were just so many shelving slots all over this bedroom that things were just like clipping through each other and like bouncing around and getting stuck, and it was not working for me. So it took me a little bit, but I figured it out. That little area where the stairs is, I don't really do a lot with it. There's that sort of like one tile thin area between the stairs and the wall. You saw earlier I tried just getting rid of it entirely by sort of closing out the room, but that would have made the room one tile smaller than the room above it, and I wanted that room to also sort of form as like a foundation for the house. So I kept it the way it was. You can put whatever you want there. There's not really a lot of space for anything. Maybe like a lamp could be cool, but I mean, you don't really have to do anything with that space if you don't want to. So now working on the sort of master bathroom ensuite type area. I definitely wanted a bathtub. Bathtub was important for me. I thought that because this is like a sort of outdoor, sort of woodsy area, really serene, really quiet, like you're going to want a place to relax. So I decided to put the bathtub in a totally different room. I couldn't figure out a way to sort of organize the space to have the bathtub and the sink and the shower and the toilet all sort of in the exact same room without just like sort of pushing everything up against the wall and making it look a little clumsy. So I thought this like single room for the bathtub by itself would actually be really nice. There's like a little stool with a plant on it and the candles all around. I just thought it was really lovely. But this bathroom is pretty simple. Just, I put some towels and some little clutter items. But it's really nothing too special. I really like it. I like how simple it is, just sort of neutral black and white tones because of all the wood that's going around. Put quite a few little plants. These counters. Yeah, I use that same sort of sink technique. I put it right in the middle. That can't stay, unfortunately. Even though it is really, really nice. I love sinks that are like that. They're sort of like elevated above the rest of the counter. I think it's so, so cool, but they don't work, unfortunately. So I do just switch it out with sort of like a normal bathroom sink. But yeah, just sort of cluttering up the space. I put a little lamp. I, for some reason, am just like really averse to using ceiling lights. I don't like them. So I had to figure out a way to like light all of my spaces using like lamps and stuff like that. I see a lot of builders taking those sort of like round ceiling lights and just sizing them down. I thought about doing that. I would have to go through and change the light tone because I really like having warm light in the house, especially for a house that's like super cozy and super secluded and it's like a good place for doing work. I wanted some really, really sort of like gold tones, and those ceiling lights are like bright white fluorescent. I hate them. So you'll see downstairs there is a little bit of a darker space, but you could totally toss in like another ceiling light. You see, I decorated that deck up there. I put a couple of like lounge chairs. I put some plants. I do think I put some of those little what do you call those? The little pots for gardening out there too. You see me trying to light up this space a little bit. I put those, what do you call them? Those like weird not light things. Those like squares of light that come in debug. And I put them under the deck where the windows are. I figured that they could sort of simulate the idea of there being light coming in through the house to sort of like light up the outdoor space. So that's what I use them for. And now you just see me just finishing the rest of the outside, pop it in the mailbox, and that's going to be about it for this build. Then we're going to sail into some screenshots. So thank you guys for watching, and be on the lookout for the next one. Have a good one.